The emergency lights pulsed an ominous crimson throughout the Grand Council chamber, casting strange shadows across the assembled representatives of 27 galactic civilizations. I, Admiral Kax'thor of the Centaurian Empire, gripped the edges of my hover podium as it floated above the polished obsidian floor. The chamber buzzed with nervous whispers and frightened clicks, sounds that would have been unthinkable in this sacred space mere months ago. Order. Order in the Grand Council. Council Speaker Zyra's voice boomed through the chamber, her crystalline form reflecting the emergency lights like a disco ball of authority. We will hear the reports in sequence. Ambassador Nex, proceed with your account. A tall, serpentine figure rose from the eastern quadrant, their scales rattling with barely contained distress. The Ophidian Confederation has lost contact with 3 more colony worlds. Our defensive fleets, they were scattered like leaves in a solar wind. The attacks are precisely coordinated, brutally efficient, and show no mercy. The collective has similar reports, chittered Representative BZT-427, their antennae twitching erratically. 2 mining outposts and a research station completely overrun. The few survivors babble about unstoppable forces and weapons that ignore our strongest shields. More reports followed, each more disturbing than the last. The Proxima Syndicate had lost 5 trade routes. The Andromedan Alliance reported the destruction of their most advanced shipyard. The pattern mines of the Silicon Consciousness were experiencing unprecedented system failures. I watched my fellow council members shift uncomfortably in their seats, pods, and containment fields. None wanted to speak the truth we all suspected. None wanted to admit the horrible mistake we had allowed to happen. We must address the silver-tailed beast in the chamber, rumbled Grand Arbiter Mox, his 13 eyes blinking in sequence. These attacks began shortly after the incident with the Sol system. The chamber fell silent. Even the usual background hum of environmental systems seemed to quiet at the mention of that cursed star system. Impossible! Captain Raxon Vrell's voice cracked through the silence. The former hero of the Centaurian Empire now looked decidedly less impressive, his usually immaculate uniform showing signs of hasty repairs. They were primitive, barely able to reach their own satellite. Their most advanced weapons relied on chemical propulsion, for void's sake. I couldn't help but laugh, the sound harsh and bitter. Oh, how wrong we were, Captain. How catastrophically, monumentally wrong. Would anyone like to know what my intelligence division discovered in the ancient archives yesterday? A warning, written in the oldest language we've ever decoded. Would you like to know what it said? The chamber leaned forward collectively, drawn in despite themselves. I raised my hand, projecting the holographic text for all to see. The ancient symbols glowed an eerie blue as I translated. Beware the children of Sol. They appear primitive until threatened. They seem weak until cornered. They look defenseless until attacked. But know this: their true strength lies not in their technology, but in their relentless, unstoppable drive for revenge. If you value your civilization's survival, remember this one rule: never, ever mess with humans. Captain Vrell's face had lost all color. But we already did. Yes, Captain, I sighed, watching another emergency light begin flashing. Yes, we certainly did. And now we're all about to learn exactly why that was the worst mistake any of us have ever made. The chamber's main display crackled to life, showing a fleet of ships unlike anything we'd ever seen emerging from hyperspace. At their head, a massive vessel bore a simple message in 27 different galactic languages. You should have left us alone. 3 months earlier. Captain Raxon Vrell, your patrol report has caught the High Command's attention. Admiral Kax'thor spoke, his tentacles waving lazily in the command center's artificial breeze. A previously undocumented civilization in Sector 7. Vrell stood straighter, his copper-colored uniform gleaming under the triple sun's light streaming through the crystal dome. Yes, Admiral. My scout ships detected significant energy signatures from a system with 9 planets. The third one shows signs of technological civilization, though primitive by our standards. Primitive. How the Admiral's secondary eyes narrowed while his primary set focused on the holographic display. They still use combustion engines for their ground vehicles. Their space vessels barely reach their planet's moon. Most fascinating, though Vrell's mandibles clicked excitedly, they have extensive mining operations on several worlds in their system. Completely undefended. The display zoomed in on various Their military capabilities, Kax'thor asked, trying to ignore the greedy glint in Vrell's compound eyes. Laughable. Projectile weapons, chemical rockets, basic. Admiral Kax'thor felt unease ripple through his chromatophores. The High Command wants your assessment of potential resources. I've already drafted plans for a preliminary raid. Vrell practically bounced with excitement. One battle group could secure their entire asteroid belt. 2 more could lock down their Mars colonies. The humans wouldn't even have time to mount a response. You seem quite confident, Captain. With all due respect, Admiral, I've conquered 6 primitive worlds for the Empire. These humans? They're barely out of their Stone Age. Did you know they still use projectile weapons? Actual pieces of metal propelled by explosions. It's almost cute. The Admiral's chromatophores flickered with warning patterns, but Vrell was too caught up in his own brilliance to notice. Very well, Captain. You have authorization for a preliminary resource acquisition mission. But he raised a primary tentacle. Minimal casualties. We're not barbarians. Of course, Admiral. They'll barely know what hit them. 2 weeks later, Vrell's confidence evaporated as his flagship, the Glory of the Void, limped back to Centaurian space. The ship's beautiful copper hull was now scarred with impact craters and strange, circular holes that went clean through multiple decks. What do you mean they shot back with their primitive weapons? Kax'thor roared, all 4 eyes locked on Vrell's battered form. Your shields should have. They went straight through, Vrell whispered, mandibles trembling. Right through our shields like they weren't even there. They called them kinetic penetrators, depleted uranium cores at relativistic speeds. We never even considered who uses physical ammunition anymore. The raid failed. Failed? Failed doesn't begin to describe it. We lost 3 ships in the first exchange. Their orbital defense platforms were hidden, Admiral. Hidden. And those Mars colonies? They weren't undefended research outposts, they were military bases. The Admiral's chromatophores paled. The asteroid belt. A trap, Vrell shuddered. The miners were soldiers. The cargo ships were Q ships packed with weapons. Those primitive chemical rockets, they packed them with thousands of autonomous hunter-killer drones. We didn't even see their actual warships until what? Until they emerged from behind their gas giants. Admiral, they have ships bigger than anything in our fleet. They were just hiding them. Waiting. We didn't find their civilization, they let us find them. An aide burst into the command center, panic evident in their rapid color changes. Admiral, we're detecting multiple boggies entering the system. Energy signatures unlike anything we've ever. The room plunged into darkness as every screen went dead. When they flickered back to life, a single message blazed across each display. Thanks for the performance review of our defenses. We'll be sure to return the favor. Sincerely, the United Earth Defense Force. Admiral Kax'thor turned to the trembling Captain Vrell. What exactly did you do to provoke them? I might have blown up one of their orbital platforms, after they warned us to leave. Twice. The Admiral's chromatophores flashed death pattern red. Captain, I believe you just started a war we really don't want to fight. This is Admiral Jessica Blackwood of the United Earth Defense Force. The transmission cut through every frequency, every quantum channel, every conceivable method of communication across Centaurian space. The human's voice was unnervingly calm, almost conversational. You know why we're here. I watched from the command center as the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace. Their ships were wrong. Where our vessels displayed the elegant copper curves of proper military aesthetics, theirs bristled with weapon arrays and sensor pods. No attempt at beauty, just pure, brutal functionality. Your recent incursion into Sol-controlled space resulted in the deaths of 342 civilian contractors. You ignored 2 warnings to withdraw. You fired upon an unarmed observation platform. Now, you'll learn why that was a mistake. The human ships moved with impossible precision. Our tactical displays struggled to track them. Their electronic warfare systems made a mockery of our sensors. One moment they appeared to be capital ships, the next they registered as debris, then as dozens of smaller vessels. Blessed void, whispered Captain Vrell beside me. They're not even using their main weapons yet. They're toying with us. He was right. The human fleet was systematically dismantling our outer defense grid using what appeared to be point defense weapons. Our most sophisticated shields might as well have been solar radiation filters for all the protection they offered. That's when the second wave hit. Smaller ships, barely larger than courier vessels, screamed out of hyperspace inside our defense perimeter. We'd always thought that was impossible the energy requirements for such precise jumps would be. Those mad creatures are using microfusion reactors as disposable power sources. Our chief engineer's color patterns showed pure shock. They're burning out their jump drives for single tactical insertions. The human admiral's voice returned, still eerily pleasant. We notice you have allies in nearby systems. The Proxima Syndicate, the Ophidian Confederation, the Silicon Consciousness. Tell them what happens next. Tell them what happens when someone attacks Earth. Our planetary defense platforms, the pride of Centaurian military engineering, lasted exactly 6 minutes against the human assault craft. They didn't use energy weapons or exotic particle beams. No, they used refined fragments of their own shattered moon as kinetic kill vehicles, accelerated to relativistic speeds by gravity slings hidden in their outer solar system. By the way, Admiral Blackwood added, as if commenting on the weather, those mines you left in our asteroid belt? We've modified them, improved them. You might say, you'll be seeing them soon. She wasn't lying. Our own weapons, reversed engineered and enhanced with human technology, began appearing throughout our territory. Supply lines collapsed, communication relays went dark, trade routes became death traps. The Proxima Syndicate lasted 3 days before surrendering unconditionally to the humans. The Ophidian Confederation didn't even attempt resistance. They broadcast their surrender on all frequencies the moment human ships entered their space. The Silicon Consciousness tried to negotiate. They stopped trying after the humans demonstrated something called computer viruses, digital weapons that turned the pattern mind's own consciousness against them. Your civilizations have grown soft. Blackwood's transmission continued, her words burning into our archives for future generations to study. You've forgotten what it means to fight for survival. On Earth, we never had that luxury. We evolved as prey animals who became apex predators through sheer determination. Every piece of technology we possess was developed because we had to fight for it against nature, against each other, and now, against you. The humans systematically occupied every strategic point in our territory. They didn't pillage. They didn't raise cities or destroy infrastructure. They simply took control, with terrifying efficiency. Earth was never defenseless, she explained, as her forces secured their 100th victory in under a week. We simply saw no reason to reveal our true capabilities until provoked. What you discovered in our solar system was a facade, civilian operations under minimal military protection. You never saw our actual defense fleet. You never detected our real weapons platforms. You thought you found an emerging civilization. Instead, you found humanity's kindergarten. Representatives from 17 systems demanded emergency council sessions, all frantically trying to switch sides. The humans accepted each surrender with the same mechanical efficiency they showed in combat. No gloating, no demands for reparations, just new security agreements that essentially turned former enemies into protectorates. A final note, Admiral Blackwood's message concluded. We're not interested in conquest. We're not even particularly interested in punishment. What we want is simple to be left alone to pursue our own path among the stars. Remember that. The next species that mistakes our patience for weakness won't receive the same professional courtesy. The human fleet departed as quickly as it had arrived, leaving behind a completely restructured power dynamic in the galaxy. But they also left something else, a small plaque, quantum etched in indestructible materials, mounted in the Grand Council chamber. It bore a simple message that would become the most important rule in galactic law. Humanity is not trapped among the stars with you. You are trapped among the stars with humanity. Admiral Blackwood sent one final personal message to my command console. Even now, years later, the words still send shivers through my chromatophores. Next time, just say hello. They're hunting us down, one by one, ship by ship. Every vessel that participated in the attack on their system. Commander Thal X's voice crackled through the encrypted channel, fear evident even through the distortion. They're not just pursuing us, they're tracking us through hyperspace. I watched the tactical display as another distress beacon went dark. That made 17 ships from the original raid fleet, eliminated with surgical precision. The humans weren't interested in other targets, didn't respond to attacks from uninvolved vessels. They simply followed their list, methodically crossing off names. The diplomatic corps tried sending another delegation, my aide reported, skin flickering nervous patterns. The humans responded with a short message, "Not interested." On screen, a Centaurian heavy cruiser designated Swift Victory attempted a desperate maneuver, diving into a gas giant's atmosphere to shake their pursuers. The humans didn't even bother following. They simply launched what they called smart mines, autonomous weapons that waited at every possible exit trajectory. Swift Victory emerged 6 hours later, out of fuel and options. The human response vessel was waiting. No demands for surrender. No victory broadcasts. Just another name crossed off their list. Their warfare doctrine is incomprehensible, Grand Strategist Pelnay admitted during an emergency session. They don't follow any recognized tactical protocols. When we gather overwhelming force, they engage in hit and run attacks. When we disperse our ships, they concentrate their forces. When we try to match their adaptability, they switch to completely different strategies. The Proxima Syndicate attempted to protect some of the fugitive vessels, hiding them in their nebula sanctuaries. The humans responded by introducing self-replicating nanites into the nebula's gas clouds. The nanites didn't attack ships or crews, they simply made the nebula transparent to human sensors. Nowhere left to hide. They're using our own technologies against us in ways we never imagined, Research Director Max Zahn reported. Remember those shield harmonics they captured in the first battle? They've modified them to create detection fields that ignore our stealth systems. They're not just learning from us, they're improving everything they encounter. Captain Vrell's ship was among the last to be found. He tried surrendering, tried bargaining, even attempted to ram his vessel into the human pursuit craft in a final act of defiance. The humans responded by simply shutting down his ship's systems with a targeted electromagnetic pulse, then tractoring the powerless vessel to the nearest Centaurian outpost. They left him alive. Left them all alive. That was perhaps the most terrifying part. The humans didn't want revenge through destruction. They wanted to make sure there were survivors to spread the message. The analysis of their pursuit patterns shows something disturbing, Intelligence Officer Raz pointed out. They're not using their most advanced technologies, not deploying their full military strength. This is a training exercise for them. They're using this hunt to test new weapons and tactics. The humans developed a new technique with each pursuit. For one ship, they used quantum entanglement to track its hyperspace signature. For another, they deployed temporal sensors that could detect engine trails through time itself. Each chase showcased another technological terror, another reminder of how badly we had underestimated them. We should have recognized the signs, Admiral Kax'thor admitted to the Council. Their history was freely available in their information networks. This species went from primitive flight to landing on their moon in less than 70 years. They developed atomic power, then immediately created weapons from it. Every major technological advancement they made was driven by warfare or competition. We didn't find a young species, we found one that was battle-tested and had simply chosen peace until we forced their hand. The last ship of the original raid fleet was finally cornered 3 months after the human counterattack began. Like all the others, it was disabled rather than destroyed. Its crew was returned safely to their home territory. And like every other captured vessel, it was sent back with a simple message burned into its hull. Lesson ended. Class dismissed. The archives were there all along. Archive master locks announced to the stunned council chamber. References to humanity scattered across a dozen dead civilizations. Warning after warning ignored or forgotten. The holographic displays flickered with ancient text recovered from abandoned worlds, each telling the same story in different words, each bearing the same warning. The Zix Empire, extinct for 30,000 years, beware the world of wars, where every defeat makes them stronger. The crystal mines of Andromeda, they adapt, they evolve, they overcome. To fight them is to teach them how to destroy you. Even the mysterious precursors left warnings. The third planet harbors creatures who turned their greatest weaknesses into unconquerable strengths. They named their moon after their dreams, then reached it through sheer determination. Ambassador necks slithered forward, scales shimmering. My species encountered them briefly, 5,000 years ago. We have nursery tales warning children about the Terran persistence. Our ancestors witnessed a lone human vessel, damaged and stranded, survive in deep space for 3 years until rescue arrived. The crew grew food in their own waste, recycled their breath, and refused to die. The pattern minds discovered fragments of their entertainment broadcasts, chittered Representative BZT-427. They turned their own catastrophes into something called movies. They imagined countless ways their world could end and always survive. These were not cautionary tales. They were training simulations. But more stories emerged. The Proxima Syndicate admitted to observing human sports competitions, watching in horror as their athletes deliberately pushed their bodies to breaking points for something called Olympic gold. The Silicon Consciousness confessed to studying human medical records, astounded by their ability to survive injuries that would kill most species. They're the only known species, Grand Arbiter Mox rumbled, that experiences something called spite. They will endure any hardship, ignore any cost, if sufficiently motivated by this emotion. And we gave them motivation. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. We hadn't just awakened a sleeping giant. We had proven every ancient warning true. The humans didn't need to destroy us. They simply needed to demonstrate why every species before us had learned to give their worlds a wide berth. From this day forward, Council Speaker Zyra declared, her crystalline form pulsing with conviction, all references to humanity in our records will carry a new designation: protected species, category Omega. Not because they need protection, but because the rest of the galaxy needs protection from our own foolish impulses regarding them. No one objected. Not one voice was raised in protest. We had learned our lesson. The humans had taught it perfectly. And so here we stand in the Grand Council chamber, watching the votes roll in. Green lights flashing across the board as each civilization endorses the new galactic law: one, the human rule. Let the record show, Council Speaker Zyra announces, her crystalline form reflecting the unanimous approval lights, that all 27 civilizations have ratified the following: any aggressive action against Earth or her colonies shall be considered an act of galactic suicide. Captain Raxon Vrell, stripped of his military rank but preserved as a living reminder, shifts uncomfortably in his observer's pod. The humans insisted he be present for this. They even sent him a gift basket with something called chocolate and a note saying no hard feelings. They were letting us live with our embarrassment. Somehow that was worse than any revenge. Furthermore, Zyra continues, humanity has graciously provided us with a communication protocol for future interactions. They call it, let me get this right, the "Hey buddy, let's grab a coffee and talk about this directive." Laughter ripples through the chamber, nervous but genuine. The humans had somehow turned our greatest military disaster into a diplomatic breakthrough. They weren't demanding reparations. They weren't imposing restrictions. They simply wanted us to talk first and shoot never. I step up to deliver my final remarks as Admiral of the Centaurian Empire. Let us remember this not as the day we surrendered to humanity, but as the day we finally learned wisdom. They could have destroyed us. Instead, they chose to teach us. And speaking personally, I'd rather share a galaxy with a species that turns enemies into friends through superior firepower and gift baskets. The chamber erupts in approving clicks, whistles, and chromatophore flashes. As I prepare to leave the podium, my personal communicator chimes. A message from Admiral Blackwood. Nice speech. By the way, we just invented teleportation. Thought you should know before someone else gets jumpy about our ships appearing out of nowhere. Drinks next week. P.S. You haven't lived until you've tried tequila. I stare at the message, mandibles twitching in what I've learned humans call a smile. This is our life now. A galaxy where the most advanced civilization acts like everyone's slightly crazy but lovable neighbor, who just happens to have enough firepower to vaporize solar systems. Admiral, my aide, approaches cautiously. The humans have invited the entire council to something called a beach party to celebrate the treaty. Yes, this is definitely our life now, and somehow I wouldn't have it any other way. Just remember the rule, kids never mess with humans. But if you're nice, they'll teach you how to party like one.